Mr. Chair, I think my network's back up. I don't know if it's using the network or the cell service, but regardless, I'm up. So
well, we can hear you, so that'll work. All right, 6:04 p.m. I'll call us to order. First order of business is an encumbrance for the Arkansas ballot access drive. We have with us our ballot access coordinator, Bill Redpath, and the chair of the affected state, Michael Pacco. Bill, can I just turn it over to you to explain what we're doing?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Oops, sorry, hang on one second. Yes, Ms. Hollis?
Is Mr. Longstreth is the only one absent from the executive committee, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I had that down.
All right. Anyone else absent? All right, no one else absent. All right. Mr. Redpath, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to Michael Pacco for joining us. I will be reasonably brief with this. We have a chance to do a party petition in Arkansas, get back on the ballot for 2022. We should do this as soon as possible, and we should do it. I think we should do it this year, and I think we should get it going before the end of March, because we have a 90-day window to do 10,000 valid signatures. And if we start in March, we would be finished by sometime in June before the summer cranks up in Arkansas. And I have experienced summers in Arkansas, and they are, and I petitioned when it's cool and I petitioned when it's hot, and cool is a lot better than hot when you're out there petitioning. So we're going to try to beat the Arkansas summer here. So 10,000 valid signatures, given the history of validity in Arkansas, 14,000 gross signatures should be sufficient to get the 10,000 valid. Like I said, this is a party petition to qualify candidates for. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but all this is, we would be equal with the R's and D's in terms of ballot access, putting candidates on the ballot for any office in Arkansas. So we figure it is Michael's estimate about 2,000 volunteer signatures, hopefully more, but we want to be conservative on that. That means 12,000 gross. I think we should budget this for, hopefully we can do it for less, but I think we should budget for $3 per paid sig, which means $36,000. Subtract from the $36,000 the $12,000 that the LPAR already has in the bank. There is also going to be about a $10,000 transfer from funds left over for Ricky Harrington running for U.S. Senate. He cannot spend those funds for governor, but he can transfer the funds to the Libertarian Party of Arkansas. So that, and about, then there was $2,000 raised recently. So that means that basically that adds up to 24,000. Subtract that from the 36, leaves about $12,000 that would be needed from the Libertarian National Committee to make this into a coherent plan to successfully finish this petition drive by sometime in June. Michael, do you have any updates or any corrections or any news relevant to this?
The only update is that our local fundraising has proceeded, gone pretty well. We're now up to over 15,000 in the bank. That includes the couple of thousand I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago. We've added to that in terms of fundraising.
And thank you both. And I'll just add, we have set aside an $84,000 placeholder for ballot access expenditures this year. And while we didn't earmark it for any particular states, we did note we'd likely be doing something in Alaska, Arkansas, Maine, and North Dakota this year. So it's consistent with what we presented in the budget originally. And I think this would be our first encumbrance. I don't think we've done any yet.
Michael,
comments, questions, anything? Oh, sorry, Mr. Redpath.
Michael, would you like to, I had said $12,000 as the ask. Would you like to amend that, or you think it's possible to ask for less, or not?
I think your calculations are about right. If we go with $3 a signature, the total required, we'd need about 12,000 to top off our current funding. That would leave us at the end with very little left to move on toward the nominations and election season, but we can go from there.
Okay, so there you have it, I guess.
Comments, questions, observations?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Molman. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Bill and Michael. The one thing I would say to avoid, in the past, we get a dollar figure approved, and then we get to the end of a drive where 1,000 or 2,000 or, just barely short. And if I remember right, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're allowed to go basically 10% over whatever we say. Here, that I think the policy manual allows an automatic 10% overage. In this case, what would that give us? If we're doing 12,000, that would give us 1,200. That's 400 extra signatures. What I'm trying to get to is avoiding having to have another emergency executive committee meeting to approve the expenditure of $1,000 and inconvenience all of us, when I know for a fact that especially Mr. Pacco is extremely fiscally conservative and will not waste our money. That, because I've worked with him on multiple drives and understanding that these guys have gotten close, so close twice. Mr. Pacco, the last time was what, 2.9 something? And you need 3?
To remain, he's talking about remaining the vote percentage needed to remain on the ballot.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Molman, are you?
I just wanted to give Mr. Molman some info.
Okay.
Sure. I mean,
That 10% thing is for an entire budget line. It's not for sub items within a budget.
You stole what I was about to say there, Madam Secretary. I thought the same thing.
Great minds think alike. And I love that statue in the back. Oh my goodness.
Oh yes, that's Julie's, not mine.
all right.
So Ken,
Did you say that's Julie's or that's Julie?
All right, I won't respond to that.
All right.
So Ken, what you're saying is you think we should ask for more money?
I think this body should authorize more, knowing that Mr. Redpath and Mr. Pacco have a track record, have a history with the party of doing these drives. They're both trustworthy, and that they're not going to waste our money. It's not going to be spent frivolously if they have to tap in a little deeper than they expect. That it's just this is completing the drive money without having to call an emergency meeting on some random day of a weekend where, the whole drive's going to come to a halt because we don't have another $500 or something stupid like that. I want to avoid the emergency meetings. That's what I'm getting at. And in this case, I feel comfortable because it's Bill and Michael.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Harless?
Would it be possible to authorize right now the amount we have and then grant you authority to release an additional amount rather than allocating a whole amount at once?
I believe we could do that if we wanted to do that.
Yeah, I'd be amenable to that. I'm just looking for a way to avoid the emergency meeting. That's all. And hoping there won't be one, but.
This being my first time on the executive committee, has that happened a lot?
Not for me, but I've only been on, this is a term and a half.
I think in 2016, we had a couple of emergency spends, if I remember correctly. Bill, am I wrong about that, Bill? We had a couple of emergency meetings in 16.
Probably true. I don't know if they were necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say they were emergencies, but there were supplemental spends, and there usually are. Sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and that's all I'm trying to get at is, I mean, we know Bill, we know Michael, they've each been to this rodeo before, and I've been on ballot access. I don't feel like Michael or Bill are going to waste the money. And so give a little bit of wiggle room with the understanding that, of course, we want them to spend as little as possible to get the job done, but we want them to get the job done. And they know that too. So.
So did you have a number in mind?
Well, that's a really good question. So Bill, you said you were originally asking for 12. Is that correct?
Right.
And Michael, you said you've raised a little bit extra beyond that, but that's going to bleed you completely dry. I know we've done that to states in the past, but if we're going to hit 3%, you're going to need a little bit of seed money to actually push those campaigns forward too. And I don't want to see the state party crippled after we do it. 36,000 is what we think it's going to cost. I think we should authorize 12 and then approve the chair to do up to 2,400 more. That's what, 20%? And that should definitely get it done. I mean, and Bill, you tell me, but I think that's plenty.
That should be enough. I would agree.
Mr. Hagan, would you mind helping us perfect the wording on that? I think technically it's an encumbrance, right?
Right. Although sometimes our wording has been that the executive committee authorizes 12,000 be spent on Arkansas ballot access, with the additional $2,400 that can be authorized by the chair. How's that sound?
Mr. Molman?
That sounds good to me. That sounds like my motion.
All right.
I'll second it then.
It's been moved by Mr. Molman, seconded by Mr. Hagan. Is there any objection or wish for debate? Seeing none, without objection. All right. Go
Mr.
gather
Chair,
signatures.
And Michael, I'll have voter validator up in a day when I get back from Alabama's convention.
Okay, super, thanks.
And
Yep.
and Michael, just a question: do you want any assistance from me at this point, or are you good to go in terms of getting a paid petitioner going?
If you know of any petitioners around who want to sign on, let me know. We've got a couple lined up ready to come into town and get to work. But I'm not sure that we have the manpower in terms of paid petitioners at this point to get it done. We might need one or two more.
Bill has a nice list and a naughty list. I'm sure he'll help you out.
Yeah.
All right, I'll call you offline about that.
All right.
All right.
Go get it, Michael.
Thank you. Second and final order of business is our June meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Redpath.
I'm going to sign off at this
Yeah.
point.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
very
Redpath.
much. Take care. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
And then Mr. Paco, you're welcome to stay if you want. We're going to talk about where we're having our June meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Harms.
just one related question. Do we know when the entire ballot access committee will be populated?
It's an email waiting to be sent in my inbox. I'm confirming with one person to make sure
Okay.
they're still willing to serve. So, yeah. All right. June meeting. Not long ago, the LNC adopted a motion to schedule an in-person June meeting, leaving the specific date and location to this committee to sort out. So I thought I would start the discussion there. The weekends of June, just so we all have them in front of us, are June 5, 6, 12, 13, 19, 20, and 26, 27. And then I suppose it's helpful to know who's got conventions scheduled. June 11, 12 has Florida,
And the
along with the
Frontier.
Frontier
Yeah.
Summit. June 19, 20 is North Carolina, and also is Father's Day, I believe. And then June 5, which is a Saturday only, is Delaware. With that, I'll throw it open if people have preferences. What I'm hoping we might do is hopefully nail down the date, and then if we can't completely nail down the location, at least give a few options for Mr. Kraus to work his magic and find a good deal for us somewhere in the country, but maybe give him some guidance on where we'd like to be. So with that, I'll kind of open it up if anybody wants to speak to ideas on this.
I'd like to move June 5th and 6th.
All right. Ms. Harless moves June 5th and 6th. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it has the least amount of conflicts, and it's a one-day convention. And actually, kind of that's in my head. Have we considered having it in Delaware? And we could perhaps help out with give a small state some love. That was in my mind when it's not contingent on that, but I just throwing that out there. But it's the one with the least conflicts.
Anybody else wish to speak to date?
And you said the 19th was North Carolina,
Yes.
and we have we what 2 members LNC in from that state, so that would be not be good. In the 26th and 27th, was that no conflict?
I'm not aware of any states that have a convention, although I'm sure one will pop up. There's really no, there's really no weekend in the first half of the year that has no conflict technically.
Yeah, originally I did have a conflict for the 5th, but that thing got canceled due to COVID, so now I am free on that first weekend.
Mr. Chair, I'm okay with the 5th, 6th. And I actually agree when I heard those dates. With if we could get near Delaware, that'd be kind of cool, maybe, or maybe they don't want us near. Who knows? We probably should ask them. But I do like the idea if they're amenable to doing that. Obviously, the last weekend in June, currently we know of no conflicts. And while that puts off our meeting a little longer than I would like, it may give us the ability to also then collapse the first week in July's meeting, which is, preset, but that's also, if I'm not mistaken, 4th of July weekend that I personally, would rather be hanging out with my family, which I'm hoping I'll be allowed to hang out with my family again that weekend by then, rather than.
Says the president. So.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping. And so I think the advantage, the main advantage to holding it in late June is that we would be able to take care of any business that would have been the next weekend as well. So I'm amenable to either one. I just wanted to kind of speak to both. And I'm good with whatever this body wants to do on either of those.
I know the guys
those
from
are the 2 options. If anybody wants to, who hasn't spoken yet, wants to, if they want to indicate a preference. I'm sorry, Ms. Harlos.
I was just going to say, I know the guys from Delaware really well, and I think they would be like tickled pink because they say they never get any attention. When I went and visited their convention, they were just like astounded that someone knew they existed.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
I would just say that my inclination would be the last weekend in June, although I'm amenable as well to the first weekend. The only thing that I would say is I have a little concern about, us kind of flying in and trying to conduct a meeting at the same time that Delaware would be trying to have their convention. Some of us were tossing around the idea of the Frontier Summit, and seemed pretty clear that that would be just a little too complicated for people running back and forth and so forth. So I don't, either of those dates works. Although I think Mr. Molman makes a good point about the last weekend in June and being able to compress those with the 4th of July weekend.
Oh, there's a note in the chat which may be helpful that we think Pork Fest is the last weekend in June.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Let me double check that though. Let me do a Google search. I was racking
June
my brain.
21 to 27, so it sounds like it.
Yep.
Rats.
I knew I thought there was something big, and I was like sitting here going, I'm getting old.
Well, so June 5, 6.
Pork Fest isn't really my jam, but I know that a lot of party members go there, and I think it would do a disservice because I know
Unless
it's a lot
wanted
of
to have the meeting at Pork Fest.
Well,
I'd be okay with that.
That'd be interesting. I will go back to I'm good with either weekend then.
Okay.
So
Well,
I'd
at
be
this
good
point-
with the end of June if we had the meeting in New Hampshire.
Oh, you should just go. You don't want to go and have to sit in an LNC meeting.
It's the only way I can go because I can't afford the flight to 2 places. So if we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, it's good for me.
Alrighty, I'll just go down the list and you can indicate if you prefer 5th, 6th versus 26th, 27th. Mr. Molman?
I am indifferent.
All right. Mr. Hagan?
Is Pork Fest near a major airport or not too far, or is it?
I believe it's in New Hampshire.
Or,
I don't know where in New Hampshire.
Airport.
Probably not urban New Hampshire.
Oh, not near an airport, at least. Actually, I'm fine with either weekend.
All right. Ms. Harless?
I prefer the 5th and 6th unless we're doing it in New Hampshire, in which case I would prefer the 25th and 26th or 26th, 27th.
I'm going to write down 5th, 6th then.
Okay.
Ms. Epke?
I don't care. 5th and
Alright.
6th is fine.
Mr. Longstreth is absent. Mr. Phillips?
5th, 6th.
And the chair will also say 5th, 6th. So I move that we have the Allen's. Well, let's see where the discussion on location goes, and then maybe we can do a combined motion. Location. I'll open the floor on that.
Well, I have 2 suggestions.
Ms. Harless.
Delaware. And having been at one of their conventions, I think if we just stopped in and maybe like had lunch with them, they'd be thrilled. I'm not suggesting being, interfering with them, just making an appearance, I think would be a great gesture. But if not that, because again, that's the Northeast and COVID is a little sketchy up there, I'm suggesting Florida as an alternative because we know we can have our meeting.
Anyone else?
We've had quite a few meetings in Florida lately. Just for that reason, I'm kind of prefer maybe another location. But don't have any
Texas?
location on my mind.
Well, speaking on behalf of our development team, they will always want us to consider California, Texas, Florida.
Well, California, I would not feel comfortable, but Texas, secondary to Florida. I think Florida's a lot more reliable right now because it's become a point of pride for Governor DeSantis.
But honestly, any city in the country, we can figure out an option. And staff just sent me a note, make sure Chicago is included in the mix. So if there's not objection, I'd like to include Chicago in the discussion.
I'm always down for Chicago because it's 2 hours from me.
Well, if we're going to talk about that, why don't we go to Omaha? or even Kansas City. I'd go
All
to
politics is local.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I was going to note Chicago because I had heard a murmur about that. You got to it first, and that's good. I'm good with any of these locations personally. I'm flexible and good. Everything we've talked about is basically East Coast so far, or eastern half of the U.S., I should say. And I'd only ask that we can, and this hurts me to ask this, but we haven't talked about anything on the west half of the country. And if there were any options that any other member wanted for that side of the country,
Ms.
I'm
Harless,
totally down for.
You had kind of reacted negatively to California. Is there a particular reason?
Yeah, because they're totalitarian and I don't trust them. I do not trust that there will not, at the slightest drop of a hat, be further mandates, and we're scrambling to change it. And then we have the big hoo-hoo on the LNC again and have the big ass fight about whether we're having an in-person meeting. And I don't want that again. And
Okay.
California just poses too much of a risk. And that is such a divisive topic. I like how we're getting along.
If we're considering that, Chicago's not a whole hell of a lot better, just so that's clear. But I mean, I would expect by June we'd be cleared up, but.
And to that end, what Mr. Phillips just said, now that the Kentucky legislature has adjourned for the year, the legislature, our governor is reintroducing mandates because they can't stop him for another year.
Yeah.
So just be aware that that might be a thing. I would suggest that if we go to Chicago, we're not really going to Chicago. We're going to somewhere out in the burbs outside of the city of Chicago. Is going to be the safe bet for that scenario, or the safest bet. I do agree with Ms. Harlos that Florida is probably our safest bet. It does blow our whole try to hold a meeting in each region plan to
Well,
pieces.
that got blown a long time ago.
I was going to say, I think it's already blown up anyway. And so I'm totally good with that. I'm just trying to think about other places, but I mean, if we go to Miami again, I'll just eat Cuban sandwiches every meal again. That'll be wonderful.
Well, I'm wondering if there's anywhere in North Florida where it would be kind of close to Georgia.
Yeah.
I don't remember LNC meetings being in either North Florida or in the Panhandle, which would then give Alabama people access. I mean, down in South Florida, you might as well be a world away from any other states. It's like 10 hours just to get out of Florida. But if it was in North Florida somewhere, which I don't think we've done.
No.
I mean, Tallahassee's up there. It's very nice in the Panhandle.
Yeah, Tallahassee is beautiful.
It is.
Well, Tallahassee's not in the Panhandle. Tallahassee is on the East Coast. You're thinking of Pensacola is in the Panhandle.
Or maybe, yeah, I can't
And
remember.
Gainesville, I think, is in the Panhandle.
Gainesville's northern, but I don't think it's Panhandle. But yeah, I'm putting up a map because I don't remember.
Yeah, Tallahassee is close to Georgia on the East Coast.
Let me see here.
That's Jacksonville.
Oh, am I confused? Maybe
Yeah, I
I
was
am.
gonna say.
Between the two.
Oh, well, then Jacksonville's pretty too, actually. Then that's the one I'm thinking of. Jacksonville is very pretty.
Yeah, Tallahassee is the Panhandle.
First person
Okay,
I've ever heard say
durr. Listen, I get lost in my own neighborhood. Never trust me with time zones or anything to do with geography. Just
Well, I would
So-
suggest Tallahassee is close to Atlanta. Relatively. The only problem with Alabama is there's a distinct lack of an interstate from Montgomery down to Tallahassee. That's like a gap in our interstate system, but it's doable. I-10 runs over to Mobile, over into New Orleans, in Mississippi as well, and of course runs all the way over to Texas, to Houston, if somebody wanted to drive over that far. I do think the I-10 corridor makes a lot of sense. I'd be amenable to Tallahassee for sure.
I have Delaware, Chicago, the Florida Panhandle. Is there any other location that anybody would like to be in the mix?
Were there any particular cities in Texas development liked?
I can ask, but really pick the city and we'll find a cluster of donors. So.
Okay. And as far as the Panhandle of Florida, I just pulled up the Southwest Airlines map because I usually fly them. Pensacola, Destin, and Panama City.
Mm-hmm.
Panama City is very pretty as well. Just an FYI, I spent a month there on a trial, but the beaches and the oyster bars all along Front Street there on the beach. It's actually very, very nice and affordable in Panama City.
Noting if we're going to be near Alabama all year is going to be doing a giant ballot access drive. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's here, neither here nor there.
If we do consider Texas, I would suggest Austin only because we didn't get to go there for convention. And I'm sure there were some people that were disappointed, and it would be, if that's as good as anywhere, and I'm sure there's good donors there.
Sure.
I was kind of thinking either Austin or Houston, since that's where Miss Billieu lives. My brother.
Ms. Harlos, I would say that Austin would be the city most likely to do stupid things.
Okay. I don't know anything about Texas, to be honest with you. I've never been there. Well, it was
that
for a
is-
convention. I don't count that because it was.
The other problem is I don't know that there are any direct flights from outside of the state into Austin, are there? They had some sort of a deal.
Oh, Southwest did. I know I had something.
Are you thinking about Love Field in Dallas? They used to only
Yeah,
go one
Austin,
state
Texas is direct from Denver.
I can't get a direct flight to Austin. I have to go through Dallas. So I was going to, because they had some sort of deal. So.
And then Ms. Ebke, are you trying to put Kansas City in the mix?
I think it's worth thinking about, but I'm not, it's just close.
Bylaws committee 3 years ago had a very good meeting in Kansas City. It's very direct, center of the country for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, good direct flights. Plus, I mean, good food and other things to do down there.
Mr. Kraus, Mr. Harris, any opinions? We love staff opinions.
We did. Kansas City a couple years ago had really good barbecue. So there's that. But again, we've been there recently. I mentioned in the comments, we have not been to Georgia since 2004, literally, since the convention. So if anybody was interested in Georgia versus the Florida Panhandle, obviously Atlanta, it's really easy to get to. And we have some good donors in Georgia. Austin, as you mentioned, is an issue. They're currently being sued by the state of Texas for defying the governor's orders to open up. So I would not recommend Austin. Personally, I wouldn't recommend Texas in the summer, but that's just me. I personally love Salt Lake City in the summer. You can't beat the weather. And we had a couple really good deals when we were looking at convention sites from Salt Lake City, and it might be worth taking a look. If you enjoy nice weather and beautiful mountains and stuff like that.
Would second all of the wise points made by Mr. Kraus, and add to it the observation that
You're a little robotic, Mr. Harris.
A little. Ooh.
You might want to turn your camera off.
any roboticism.
Nope, still no good.
I will rejoin.
Well, we can hear you. It's just funny, so you can keep talking.
Speak slowly.
Yeah.
I was just going to point out that Delaware does have the benefit of being driving distance for staff, which has some effect of reducing travel cost. Not a major consideration, but maybe worth mentioning.
So I've written down.
Where in Delaware? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Where in Delaware is the convention?
I don't know if they've set a location yet.
Find out.
Now, there's really only two options. There's Dover or there's the Philadelphia area. I doubt they're going to have it in well, they call it slower lower, the deep south of Delaware. So
Delaware is so small, I don't think it really matters.
Even Dover is, what is it, an hour and a half, 2 hours from Philadelphia? Would there be any objection to handing Mr. Kraus a list of Delaware? Well, let's, Ms. Harless, either you or I check in with the Delaware people and see whether this would be something they would welcome or dislike.
Oh no, I was just talking with. I will, because I'm in a chat right now, actually, with one of them. So I'll loop in the chair, and
Perfect. So of giving Mr. Kraus a list of Delaware, Atlanta, Kansas City, Chicago, and Pensacola and environs, and letting him see what the best options percolate up.
What were those?
I'll read them more slowly. Delaware, Atlanta, Kansas City, Chicago, and Pensacola, Florida, or nearby areas.
Panhandle area. Okay.
Panhandle area, assuming near one of the airports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Major or medium or major.
With at least 3 commercial flights a day.
Yeah.
Let's have Southwest for Tim and I. We're both Southwest freaks.
Yeah. That's why I pulled up the Southwest
Yeah.
map.
Coming in on a single engine prop with the pontoons.
Yeah. Well, I have to bring so much crap to LNC meetings. Southwest is the only one that's economical for me because I can bring it all and not pay any extra because they're good with that.
That's so wild. Delaware has, it says they know their convention is June 5th and Spike Cohen is coming, but there is no location.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they have one yet.
okay.
But Ms. Harless will find out. She's talking to them.
Yeah.
All right. So I will move that we have the meeting on 5th, 6th, but that we defer the location, waiting to hear back from Mr. Kraus. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Can we put some kind of deadline on it? Because I'm sure the rest of the LNC is going to want to know when they're going to know.
We have a deadline of the end of the month to make a
Okay.
decision. So,
Okay.
Mr. Kraus, how long does it take you to work your magic? And is that too many cities? Should we narrow it down further?
Delaware, well, we'll wait and see where they want to be or if they want help finding something. Atlanta, Kansas City, Chicago, and Panhandle of Florida, Pensacola. I'll focus on that. 10 days.
Okay.
Week to 10 days. I should have several good choices for each.
So it would be the 27th or 28th?
the 5th and 6th, I heard.
5th and 6th.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, the date that you would have it back. You said 7 to 10 days. So the
yeah.
deadline being the 27th to the 28th.
Yeah. Easily before then, hopefully.
Okay.
Alrighty. Any objection to the 5th or 6th? 5th and 6th?
No.
Hearing none, it is the 5th and 6th. And we will defer the date, waiting to hear back from Mr. Cross. Anything else on this item?
I just want to make sure we're not throwing Tallahassee out, that it's still considered part of the Panhandle, quote unquote, because it's the eastern side of the Panhandle.
Mr. Hagan, is Tallahassee acceptable?
Trying to see.
What airlines fly into there?
That's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, I'm
It's their
looking up
state capital,
Southwest
if I remember right.
Southwest goes to Panama City,
and Pensacola.
is closest to Tallahassee. Tallahassee Airport.
I don't think we can swing Tallahassee again.
Okay. Well, yeah, I just thought that'd be close, but yeah, I'm trying to see what airlines come in here.
Yeah, both Southwest goes to both Pensacola and Panama City.
Yeah, it looks like American, Delta, Silver, whoever that is, and United are the only ones that go into Tallahassee. And you're bouncing through somewhere, probably.
Yeah,
Okay.
Delta goes to Atlanta.
Yep.
Yep.
United through Houston, American through Charlotte, Dallas, Miami, or DC.
Anything further on this item? All right, that's that item. Any further business at all?
I don't think so.
With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Joe, I'll see you in a day or so.
Yes, see you in Alabama.
And I'll